I always tell anybody, any woman in my sphere, when you walk into your doctor's office, you're an equal. You're there for advice, but you're there to be in a collaborative experience. We all know the story. You have to have the friction. The caterpillar has to have the friction to come out of the chrysalis, to be the butterfly.
Mindy, this is so good. You're speaking into something, apocalypsis, comfort with the dissolution of all structure.
What is your measurement of happiness? What is your measurement of self-care? What is your measurement of authenticity? And I started to realize that I couldn't answer those questions. I came out of that more powerful and trusting of my own gut instinct because I saved my own life in that moment.
Dr. Mindy Pelz, welcome back to Treated with Dr. Sarah.
Thank you. I love being here.
So good to have you here. And we just finished our first episode. I want to pick up on a theme that feels so resonant. And I know our listeners are also going to resonate with this, which is the way that we betray ourselves. Yeah. Why do we do that? What's the cost of it? Because I feel like the awareness always is the first piece, right? So maybe we could talk about the awareness. How do you become aware of your own self-betrayal?
Well, I mean, I can only speak from my own lens, but I think what's really interesting of where my trajectory of life happened and what went through me is in the last couple of years with Fast Like a Girl, like going out into the world. With all the success and the financial success and the likes and the follows and all of that came with it, I panicked. And I was like, wait a second, if I allow this to define me, what happens when this goes away? And then the next question was, well, then what is your measurement of happiness? What is your measurement of self-care? What is your measurement of authenticity? And I started to realize, this was like maybe a couple of years ago, I started to realize that I couldn't answer those questions. So for me, the betrayal was really revealed itself in obviously going into postmenopausal years, but it was in the success because it felt like it was like something I couldn't grab onto. And it also felt like something that scared the shit out of me because if it defines me and it goes away, who will I be? And then that led to who are you?
Who are you?
Who are you? And then I was like, well, I'm the YouTube person. I'm the fasting queen. I'm a friend to other people. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm the breadwinner. Those are all just identities that I don't really want my life to define. I like those things, but who is Mindy? Like, who is Mindy? And I could not answer that question for about a year, which is actually why I came to you and went hiking with you. Because I just felt like it's scary if you actually take all your identities away. You can't be a doctor, you can't be a mother, you can't be a friend. Like, who is the essence of the person that is sitting right there? And I came up short with any adjective or description I could even tell you of that woman. And that was as little as like a year and a half, 2 years ago.
So this is the setting for the hike that we went on.
Yeah.
And you drove from San Jose up to Mill Valley where I was living.
Yeah.
And we went on that beautiful hike around Mantown. So tell me, you've had this shift in identity. You've maybe had a reimagining of what success is.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to you now? Like, what is your core identity? What is your essence?
Oh, so good. I think I'm naturally curious.
Yes, I would agree.
I really am curious about the human body. I'm curious about life. And I like that part because each question leads me to another level of fun information. I don't want to sound egotistical, but I'm going to say it anyways. I really love large. I slant towards compassion. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care your sexual identity. I don't care your, what you identify. I don't care. Like, none of that matters to me. What matters to me when I'm in a relationship, whether it's just having tea or a deep relationship, is getting to know the depth of that soul.
Yes.
What makes that soul light up? So I know my heart is a good one. And I think really that I can show up as love for people because I don't carry a lot of hate around with me. That feels good. I'm learning my strength. I didn't see my strength, but I'm learning it. The fires taught me my strength because do you know that when I saw fire going down the side of my hill and I saw the smoke coming over, and I grew up in Malibu. We had fires all the time and you just packed everything up. You went in the car away for 2 days. You came back. It was all fine. And I had this thing in my head that was like, wait, what did my parents do? I was a kid when we would have evacuations. And I was like, I had to remind myself, you're not the kid now. You're the adult. What are you going to take? And I looked around the house and I was like, nothing here matters to me. And then I remember the Napa fires and how people didn't get out quick enough and they perished. And I was like, the only thing matters here is your own life. So get in that damn car and get out. So I got out. And then when I got to the sunset, everybody was pouring out of the canyon. So I was sitting there at sunset and I had my husband on the phone and I'm like, okay, I'm at sunset and I can either turn left into traffic or I can go right and there's nobody there. But I think if I get closer down towards PCH, I actually think there'll be more traffic. And he's like, go right, go right. And my brain was like, okay, but the wind was really strong that day. I'm like, the wind is going right. The wind is blowing right. So that means the fire is blowing right. Wouldn't I want to go away from the wind? So I went into the traffic. And then once I got in the traffic, I was like, I need a guide. I need somebody who knows the streets of LA to guide me out of here because Waze wasn't working as well. It wasn't up to date. So I called my sister. And I was like, I'm on Sunset and Bienvenida. I need your LA brain right now. Get me to PCH as quickly as possible. And so she helped navigate me. We got down. Well, check this out. If I had gone right, which was the direction that my husband told me, no, this isn't his fault, but anybody would have been like less traffic to the right. What was happening down that street that I couldn't see was that the palm fronds were lighting on fire and the palm fronds were falling on top of people's cars.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think we saw images of this, a lot of images.
That would have been me. Literally would have been me.
Life-threatening.
Yeah. I would have had to abandon my car. But I had this inner knowing and this brain that was like, think about what you know right now. Wind direction. Think about who knows the streets of LA. Like certain things came to me that I came out of that more powerful and trusting of my own gut instinct because I saved my own life in that moment.
You got tested.
I totally got tested. Yeah. But I'm very clear that I made some really smart decisions. And now I'm looking at that and going, well, where else in your life have you made smart decisions? Where else in your life? And that's part of like the betrayal. Let's go back to the betrayal is we ask our spouse, well, what do you think I should do? I did. I asked him, should I go right? Should I go left? He said, right. I went left. We ask, a doctor, what do you think I should do? And we just wait for the answer. We elect a politician. You're going to save me. We give our power away every frickin' day without coming back to a general knowing. And I think that's what I'm grabbing now is like, I make some really good decisions for myself, even in a crisis.
This is really potent. And what you're describing is in the first episode, you talked about the betrayal that went on for decades, the overfunctioning, the exhaustion, maybe burnout. I mean, I certainly was burned out.
Is there another word beyond burnout? Like extreme burnout?
Right. Chronic burnout?
Yeah.
So there was that betrayal that was happening maybe until this moment or until sometime recently when you stepped into your power and you said, I have a knowing about this.
Yeah.
I know what's right for me.
Yeah.
And I appreciate also how you mapped it to the physician-patient relationship, an imbalance of power
Yep.
for most of our careers.
Yep.
And I feel like that's starting to change finally.
Yep.
Not because of medicine changing, but because mostly, I would say, women saying, this is not the way I want to be. I hear this especially from millennials who are like, my grandmother didn't say a word about menopause. My Gen X mother seems to be going along with this idea that 73 to 75% of women don't get the treatment they need in perimenopause and menopause. I'm not standing for that.
Excellent.
Like, we need a different approach.
Excellent.
And we need doctors to start getting the education so that they can be collaborative partners with us.
Yep.
And make the right decision about my own body, which I'm the expert at.
That's right.
Not the doctor.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's a beautiful book by William Davis called Undoctored. Did you ever read it?
No. Let me read that.
Yeah. He basically, this was like 10 years ago. He said, because of the internet, now we should say AI. He said a lot, what happened to a lot of patients is they can search, Dr. Google, and they can get all this inner knowing or this outer knowing of what their condition is. And they're coming in a more informed patient into their doctor's office. But doctors aren't understanding that actually this patient might be onto something because they haven't been trained to listen to the patient. They've been trained to talk to the patient.
That's right.
So I think that is a beautiful, like I tell anybody I've ever worked with, any woman in my sphere is like, when you walk into your doctor's office, you're an equal. This is not, you're there for advice, but you're there to be in a collaborative experience. Doctor means to teach.
That's right.
We should be like linking arms with our patients and be like, hey, okay, I see where you're at. We're going to walk this together and we're going to find the answer together. I'm here with you. I get people who say to me, I'm sure you've had this too, where people will stop you in public and they'll be like, you changed my life. And I always say, no, I didn't change your life. You changed your life. Like, don't give me that power. But as women, especially, we just outsource power all the time. And then we hit 55 and we're like, who am I? What am I? What do I want?
What is success?
What is success? I mean, when you look at those statistics of 45 to 55 being the most common decade that women kill themselves,
yes,
I understand that now. Because what if you wake up and you realize that your whole life has been you giving it away to an external source, and there's nothing on the inside that you have trained yourself to understand? That's a scary moment.
It's a scary moment. You feel like a shell of a person.
Yeah.
And it generates that identity search, that dark night of the soul.
Right. And that's what I think we need to speak about more, because when you get to, so let's go back to menopause and what we talked about in the first one. Let's say you hit that place that you and I've both hit, and we know a lot of other women have hit, where you're like, who am I? What do I want? And that leads to depression. And you walk into your doctor's office and they say, oh, you're depressed? It's because you didn't get the right dosage of HRT, or you didn't go on the right antidepressant. And now you're like, great, you understand why I'm depressed. And so I'm going to take that and numb myself and miss the whole butterfly moment. You miss the whole moment. It sounds so silly. And so, like, yes, we all know the story, but, you have to have the friction. The caterpillar has to have the friction to come out of the chrysalis to be the butterfly. But did you know that every single part of the caterpillar then disintegrates in order for the butterfly to emerge? And we're 50 years old in our doctor's office suffering, and we're like, well, let me just cut the opening a little bit so you can get out of your own chrysalis.
Oh my gosh. Mindy, this is so good. You're speaking into something. Okay, now we're going to start talking about psychedelics. Yeah. Okay?
Excellent.
I feel like it needs to come in.
Yes, it does.
So you and I have worked with some of the same practitioners. And one of the first cards that I pulled when I was doing my first MDMA assisted therapy was a card called apocalypsis.
Mm.
And it's kind of a funny word, and I'll put the definition in the show notes, but it's something like comfort with the dissolution of all structure.
Ooh.
Which I think is this moment that you're talking about.
It's the
right?
burning down of everything. You have to burn it down.
And not knowing what the next structure is.
Right.
Which is maybe the moment that you've been feeling recently.
It's exactly the moment I'm in, which is what I thought mattered to me doesn't matter to me anymore.
What matters?
Oh, I only one thing, and that's finding myself. I'm only interested in an inner journey now. I really want to hear my own voice and I've been catching my voice and where I tell myself something and then I go, wait, was that my mom? Was that my dad? That's not me. Do I want that thought anymore? And so I've been really working on trying to hear my own voice and give her opportunity. But I don't think she ever has spoken until now. Mm. She's had glimmers of it. But I'm only interested in discovering who I can fully become from this point till the day I go. That's all I care about. It sounds selfish, but I feel like I'm okay to be selfish right now.
I would even say it's not just okay, it's necessary. It's required.
Yeah.
So after giving so much to so many people for so long, we have to go through this period, this apocalypsis of building the structures that are true.
Yeah.
That are not based on someone else's model.
Right. Yeah. You know, I'll never forget in my 30s, I went to my parents and I was like, okay, I was having a depressed day. It was like my mid 30s. And I was like, okay, I got married. I got the house. I got the kids. I literally have the white picket fence. Like, what do I do now? And I remember my dad looking at me. He's like, well, who the fuck told you to do that? I was like, didn't you guys tell me to do that?
Wait, did I get the wrong assignment?
Yeah. Did I miss what I was supposed to do? And, you know, it's funny because I think there is this metamorphosis, you know, if you're a parent when your kids leave, because there's so much attention put on your kids and then they go and then you're just left like wide open, like, oh my God, what, you know, who's going to love me now? Like, you know, there's just sort of, so you know, I think I'm at a place of getting to know me. And you know where I can only find her is in the space, in the quiet. By myself. And I've been doing a lot of research on this because this is causing some pain for some people in my life. It would be hard, you know, it's hard to understand. Why would you all of a sudden at 55 need to go hide out in the cabin in the woods? But for me, it's because I adapted to everybody else that I'm so enmeshed with everybody else's opinions of what they need and how they got to regulate themselves. I can't even regulate myself in the presence of everybody else. Yes. But then I go, like last night, I was in a hotel room by myself and it was heaven. And I was just like, I could feel the anxiety going away. And I was like, oh, there you are. You're just going to sit here and do whatever you want to do. And that was amazing. And I'm feeling my own vibration. And now I know when I get into a situation where my vibration is not fully welcomed or all of me is not fully welcomed, at least I can identify it now. I could not identify it before. It was I was such a professional adapter and people pleaser.
I think so many women are. Yeah. I feel like it's an epidemic. It's like the silent experience that we're not talking about.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Well, okay, so here's a theory that I have.
Okay.
This is another one that I should bounce off you. Okay, so you know we have two stress responses. We have fight or flight and we have tend and befriend. And tend and befriend, actually women slant more towards tend and befriend.
Yes.
Okay.
Kelly Taylor, UCLA.
Perfect. more oxytocin receptor sites in a woman's amygdala compared to a man. Oxytocin is heightened by estradiol. And for men, when men get oxytocin, it actually turns testosterone into more of a protective, sort of a little more of even an aggressive, you tell me what you think of that, response. Okay, so here's the question. I looked up what the neurochemical response of people pleasing is, and it's oxytocin. When I please you, you get oxytocin and I get oxytocin. And if I'm stressed when I'm cycling, we're not talking menopause, but if I'm a cycling woman and I'm super stressed out, if I can please you, I calm myself down. I think we are actually neurochemically hardwired for codependency and people pleasing because of that stress response. Now, fast forward, because I'm not pleasing you to please you. This is the messed up thing. I'm not pleasing you to please you. I'm pleasing you to calm myself down. But I don't even realize it. So I'm going to make everybody happy so I can calm myself down. Now, what happens when estradiol goes away? And all of a sudden, that part of the brain starts to change. And I think we have a different relationship with oxytocin. I think neurochemically, we don't get off on pleasing you anymore. You don't calm us. You actually agitate us now. And that's part of the menopausal veil, I think, that gets lifted because I kept the marriage together. I kept the family together. I kept the whole world applauded me because I made everybody happy and I got a calmed stress response. But then estradiol went away. And when she went away, all of a sudden I'm not neurochemically addicted to that. So now what do I do?
This is super interesting. I mean, I feel like I want to sketch it out with you on a whiteboard.
I would love to.
So what I wonder about, here's my question. I'm curious.
Yeah.
What do you think? I wonder about, I feel like people pleasing or fawning is a dysfunctional stress response.
Agreed.
And so when I think of like sympathetic activation and how women don't do so well with fight or flight.
Right.
I feel like the fawn response is a fear response.
Oh, yeah, because it was initiated by a stressor.
Yes.
And so you're fearful.
You're fearful. And so for me, cortisol seems to be running the show.
Yeah.
And you're right that taking care of someone else is a way of like calming yourself down.
Right.
But it's also an immobilizing response.
Yes.
So you're not discharging the stress. And it feels like the piece about fear makes it a little bit more complicated. Yes. And I wonder about cortisol sort of blocking the benefit of oxytocin. So
that's
can we layer this in?
Yeah.
Can we make the model inclusive of all of these possibilities?
Yeah, I think you and I should sit with a whiteboard.
Yes.
Because I've only been sitting with me and ChatGPT going through all these. But
okay. Am I coming to your place or are you coming to my place?
I'll come to you. I don't have a place right now.
Okay, come to my place.
I need to come to you. I think this is okay. I'm just gonna say it. I think this is why narcissists grab us. Because I'm going to love on you. I'm going to tell you how great you are. And my brain is like, you're safe. I'm getting oxytocin from you. I'll please you. And then one day they turn on you. Or moments they turn on you. And they start doing the opposite. But your brain has already decided that that person is safe. And that when I do what you tell me to do, that I will be calmer. And so now I'm in fear, but I already have a neuronal pathway that says you're safe. So when we look at how do women stay with that person that hit them or abused them, or even how do we ask our own selves of like, if we're not being treated right, how do we stay in these? And I think because it starts off as tend and befriend. It starts off as safety. And then one day it turns and now it's in fear. But we have already neurochemically lined ourselves up to believe that that person is safe, which is why it's so hard to break out of those relationships.
That's very powerful. And I would also, I agree with that. And I would say that false safety is a familiar pattern.
Yeah.
usually from childhood.
Right. Right. So true. So true. Yeah, I mean, I know a little bit about what your upbringing was, but that was my dad. So dad yelled at me, but then he would want to go do something fun with me after that. So that was confusing.
Yeah.
And
Kind of the switching, the code
yeah,
switching.
the code switching. But then that was my model of what a healthy male relationship would be.
That's right.
My mom taught me that whatever you do, the relationship's the most important thing. So don't ever think about yourself, think about the relationship first.
Sacrifice your authenticity to stay in relationship.
That's right. That you're going to be the one that's going to make whatever the relationship is, whether you're a mother or a wife or our relationship with our employees is a relationship. Like I just learned, keep everybody happy. And if they get angry at you, it's okay, because that's love. And I think that's all built around this tend to befriend thing in our brain, stress response, because it's all bathed with oxytocin. And this is why I think when you go into menopause and estradiol goes down, you don't have that same relationship with oxytocin. I believe that the relationship changes. And we can see that with moais that are formed with the Okinawa women. And we can see it through the lens of the grandmother hypothesis. And we can look at the way many cultures, women do aging, and they gather around each other.
What was the Okinawa thing?
It's called a moai.
Moai?
All the women get together in Okinawa and they create a moai. It's called a moai, MOAI.
It's like a community of women?
It's a community of post-menopausal women.
Interesting.
And what they do is share resources. So if one doesn't have a house, they bring a house in. One doesn't have money, they help support with money. They share meals. So that's oxytocin. That's safety and oxytocin in a different way, in a postmenopausal way.
So I want to go several layers deeper with this.
Okay.
Because I think it's a really interesting hypothesis. The other thing that I've noticed, like with genomic testing, is that people really vary in terms of their oxytocin receptors.
Ooh, amazing.
So we have to layer that in too.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, of course, people can have glucocorticoid resistance, and they can have issues with how sensitive they are to cortisol, especially if they've been bathed in cortisol for most of their lives. So we'll have to layer in all the pieces.
I do feel like a diagram would be helpful.
I think so. So we're going to do an infographic together, and then we'll share it with the world.
Perfect.
So one of the things that has been surprising for me, that has helped me connect to my truth and speak my truth for the first time, has been psychedelic medicine. So I want to get to psychedelic medicine and that conversation that we had a year and a half ago. But there are many ways to create healing states of consciousness. And when you first arrived at the studio today, you had just had total plasma exchange.
Yep.
And so I feel like we should start maybe there, because you are the queen of detoxification, and you really noticed a significant effect with TPE.
Yeah.
So can you share with us, why did you decide to do it? What did you feel while it was happening?
Yeah. So the way we look at toxins that I think is helpful for everybody is you have a toxic bucket. And each physical, emotional, chemical toxin just keeps piling. And then one day something happens. And sometimes it's a car accident. Sometimes it's a divorce. Sometimes it's a fire.
Right.
A fire you're running from. And the bucket gets tipped over. And now all of the toxins that were in there, the heavy metals, the plastics, the mold, the childhood traumas, the grief of losing a friend, all of that is in there. So we used to talk about this in my clinic all the time. And so what I realized in last week is that my bucket had tipped. And that I would walk into any room and I was like, is there mold in here? I even walked into the hotel yesterday. I was like, wait a second, there's fragrances in here. What is going, and any light, any noise was just overly stimulating me. So how you get your bucket back up, right, is you start dumping it. You got to get this toxins out. So now we look at emotional healing. It's a little more of a long game, although I am doing an MDMA journey on Tuesday. So to help with this, it's a piece of the toxic bucket I want to resolve is the trauma that I felt in running from fire and whatever I can discover from that. But I also know that I had been in several moldy homes. I've tested my heavy metals. I've always working on bringing my heavy metals down. So TPE.
Do you have sluggish detox pathways? Like
I
genomically?
have, but then, I've been doing hyperbaric oxygen and castor oil. Like I do all the opening of the pathways. So I've spent a long time doing that. And what's interesting about the detox pathways is that there's two really exciting IV detoxes out there right now. One is called EBU, and the other one is called TPE. Yeah. And the reason I like them is they kind of bypass the detox pathways. So what we saw for years in my clinic was that one person with a high toxic load could go on a detox and do just fine, and the other person would be maimed by it. And that's all the pathways. But the IVs don't seem to do that. They don't seem to create that detox reaction.
Can you define EBU, and then maybe we'll go back to
it's
TPE.
I always forget it's EBOO, and it's like extra core cellular blood oxygen something.
Ozone?
Ozone, yeah. So what they do is they put one line in you on one arm. They pull your blood out. It goes through a filter, so it takes the toxins out. And then they put ozone in the other end, the other arm. It goes in the other arm. So you're removing toxins, and then ozone is going in, and then ozone's a natural detoxer as well. It's great for pathogens. It's great for Lyme. It's great for mold. It's great for EBV.
Is there good science on this? I haven't looked at the science.
Really good science. Yeah. And I've had great clinical experience. Once I discovered EBU, I stopped doing supplements for detox. So it's I can tell you some amazing stories.
Okay.
So there's that. And I can send you science on it, and you can geek out on that.
Great.
So I like that, and I've been doing that for a couple of years, but now TPE has taken it like to a whole nother level. And why it's taking it to the whole other level, same idea, you're taking blood out on one side, and you're removing specifically the plasma. So the plasma is where the toxins hang out in the blood. So you're removing your plasma, and then you're putting albumin back into your body. So that you're not complete. You saw the big bag of what so that your fluids.
It's a lot of plasma.
It was a lot. So we've done pre and post tests on me. I'm a human guinea pig right now.
N of one experiment.
N of one. That's right. It's better than guinea pig. I'm N of one. The first one we found, I was high in mold. We also found high LP(a). I was telling you about that, which was a little surprising. And then post, I had some heavy metals, but not as much because I've spent a lot of time on that. But every single one of my toxins went down by, I would say, 30 to 40%.
Wow.
Significant. And my LP(a).
And how did you measure that? Do you use
blood.
And which test do you run?
So I did mold, we did urine.
Okay. So mycotoxins.
Yeah, we didn't do a provoke test, which is interesting, but we can maybe do. So today I'm doing pre and post again.
Okay.
So, but most of it was blood and urine, and Vibrant Wellness. Most of their
total tox.
Total tox test. That's exactly what it is, and then a full blood panel.
Okay.
So those were, and then their mycotoxins. It was like an add-on to that. So Next Health did the whole thing. And then we did.
Thanks, Darshan.
I know. And then we did 2 days later. Like I'll go back on Sunday morning, and they'll redo all the blood, and we'll look again. Right. So we're kind of he'll do it with you too, Sarah. We're like trying to create some kind of understanding of what this, because these new things that come out, it's like psychedelics. Like there needs to be a respect for them.
Yes.
And you can't just jump in and be like, oh, take 65% of my toxins away without understanding, like, the number one rule to detox is stop toxifying yourself.
Right.
So, like, I need to...
stop filling the bucket.
Yeah. Stop filling the bucket. So, but what I feel this time around was anxiety gone from the body within, the whole procedure takes about an hour and a half.
Wow.
So about 30 minutes in, I was like, oh, God, I feel like I could relax. And then the euphoria hits and you kind of have, oh, I feel really good. And then the brain fog went away. Within an hour, the brain fog that I've had for the last 3 weeks.
And this is all this morning?
All this morning, yeah. So I'm going once a month until because it's new, we're trying to figure out where that edge is and, what does a protocol like that look like. But the LP(a) was the most interesting to me because mine was at 60 and normal is 30. And LP(a), as you know, but just for people listening, can be a predictor of cardiovascular.
Silent cardiovascular disease.
Yeah, meaning I can't affect it with my lifestyle.
Mark Houston thinks that aronia berry has a significant effect.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah.
But this sounds more substantial.
Yeah.
I find that it's kind of hit or miss in terms of trying to treat it with lifestyle medicine.
Well, my friend that died in October was 54 and died of a heart attack and was completely healthy. And so I'm wondering if he had this too.
Elevation.
Yeah. My grandfather died in his 60s of a stroke, completely healthy. So this is a marker I'm watching closely.
Yeah, it's on your dashboard.
Yeah, well said. So it went down to 32 after one TPE. I went back a month later. It had gone back up to 40, not to 60, but back up to 40.
Okay. 2 steps forward, 1
right,
step back.
Exactly. So, and then the post went to about 28. So this was my third. And so we'll see.
So you just articulated so beautifully, Mindy, the use of the N of 1 experiment. So I'll take a look at the science and we'll link to it in the show notes. But I feel like, this is not part of mainstream medicine. This is a methodology that for people like you and me who are early adopters, when there's an absence of, sufficient randomized trials and other studies, what you can then do is N of 1 experiments for something that you think is going to help you.
Yeah.
And you can do this pre-post testing.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen someone drop their lipo(a) from 60s down to 28.
I'll send you my blood work.
I want to see your blood work. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways the same is true with psychedelic medicine. So I'm curious, and we have to be a little bit careful here because of legal issues, and the FDA made a decision last year not to approve MDMA for the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder. So we've got a lot of data, 2 phase 3 randomized trials showing how helpful MDMA-assisted therapy is for post-traumatic stress disorder. And yet, it's mostly underground, or you can go to your local university if they've got a psychedelic program, and you can be a research subject. So we're being a little cautious here as we talk about our experiences. So I'm curious, what did you learn as you went through this psychedelic experience, and what are you doing differently going forward?
Well, okay, for starters, I think every psychedelic has a different effect on you. And I think every psychedelic needs a guide, a well-trained guide. And I think every psychedelic needs integration and setting. Like all of that is massively important.
Yes. I think the integration is actually the most important.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
And we're not talking about the day after one session.
No.
We're talking about like multiple sessions where you really take what you learned and you're able to stitch it to your life.
I heard a really beautiful explanation of the critical learning period after psychedelics. So the reason when we're younger we can learn so well is because of the neuroplasticity that is forming as our brains are growing. And then somewhere in our teenage years, 20s, that critical learning stops. Yes. And you can't learn, all of us would agree, like harder to learn a second language now at 55.
Right.
But what psychedelics do is they open, especially MDMA, opens that critical learning up. So that's not just the journey, that's the 2 weeks after the journey, when you are neuroplastically wide open and you can really start to change some of your thoughts. And I think that's really important. So I've now have a
And that also highlights how critical it is to be working with the right people.
That's right. Yeah.
And so people who've got the right intention, who understand about this innate healing capacity that we've been talking
Yep.
about, understand how to work with you
Yep.
and not be sort of this top down, here's what you need to do.
That's right. That's right. So, and then having that real, like I've now come to the 2 weeks afterwards, just relaxing, like try not to do too much or try to be really intentional of the environment you put yourself in.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, that you're really wide open to, I mean, you're there to heal yourself. The medicine isn't healing you. You're healing yourself. So be careful. Don't put yourself back in a lot of old environments because then you fall back into the old patterns. That's sort of how I see it.
Be in nature.
Yeah.
Do these regulating activities.
Yeah.
Meditate, journal.
Right. Exactly.
Be with people you love, especially fellow journeyers who are experienced with this.
That's right. So what did I learn? My first journey, I have so much compassion for little Mindy. I learned what little Mindy put up with in her household. And I learned how she adapted to 3 very strong personalities that lived in her household that she called mom, dad, and sister, and that there was no room for her voice. But instead of judging myself, I had so much compassion for myself. Like after that first journey, even, after the MDMA like wears off, there's just like, I was like, oh my God, I really survived something that was really oppressive.
And you could feel it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got your hand on your chest.
Yeah.
You could really feel it.
Yeah. Like it's amazing. I turned out as well as I did. and my family was very loving. They were just very opinionated and they all had opinions about me. And so I just learned, wow, like, okay, this is who I was before I was infected with all these opinions. And so I started to be able to feel my own voice because I could feel the essence of my childhood version of me.
Before you adapted.
Yeah, before I adapted. So that was journey 1. Journey 2, like 3 months later, was all the relationships I'm in where the adaptation has saved the relationship, that the adaptation has been at the core of the relationship. My daughter is one of them. Like I really saw clearly how I needed her to behave a certain way so that I could feel a certain way. But then when she wouldn't behave that way, then I twisted myself into little pretzels to be a loving mom and an accepting mom and, mom of the year. And it was like, wow, that wasn't a clean relationship because I didn't show up as my true authentic self there for her. And the adapted part of me needed her to perform a certain way so that I could feel better about myself as a mom. So all of a sudden, what the psychedelic did is it gave me a true lens into me. And then the second one was like, look at all these relationships. They're not working for me. They only work if I adapt. And I don't want to adapt anymore. I want to know me. I want to get to know me. That's like, I'm like so thirsty for a relationship with the authentic me. And that's what the second journey did. So, and the third one will be on Tuesday.
Wow. So I really appreciate the vulnerability that you're sharing about your daughter.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's, it reminds me of the conversation we were having about the texts that you got and people sort of wanting you to take care of them when you were in crisis.
Yep.
I mean, one of my experiences and definitely my journeys with psychedelic assisted therapy have shown me so much about the way I mother. And, we learn to mother from our mothers.
Right.
And so we have this opportunity to clean the mirror.
Yep.
And to no longer be making those adaptations
Yep.
that keep us from our authenticity.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like that's a through line for you.
That's a total through line. But I think it's really hard when you realize that you have been mothering from a wound. So painful. It's so painful. And I'm looking forward to the time that I can have a deep conversation with my daughter about it. But it really hurts me, especially the mother-daughter relationship is so tenuous anyways. But I am looking forward to the right setting to sit her down and apologize for mothering from the wound, and to hope to have her see the new version of me that's emerging.
That's beautiful, Mindy. It's making amends.
Mhm.
And one of the things I've learned, because I've been in a 12-step program for food
Mhm.
and the food addiction that I had when I was younger, they talk about how making amends is not a one-time thing.
Ooh. Ooh, I love that.
It's not one conversation.
That's beautiful.
And one of the most effective way to have emotional and physical sobriety, because we're talking about emotional sobriety here,
Mhm.
is to be in living amends
Mm.
so that you're actively in that relationship with your daughter,
Mhm.
in my relationship with my daughters. I'm living and modeling and being the person that I
Mhm.
wanted to be,
Yep.
and mothering not from the wound,
Yeah.
but from a place of wholeness.
Yeah. But that takes an inner knowing, because you have to get to know yourself first
Yes.
so that you don't keep
Sure
bringing the
do.
wounded
Yeah,
mother back.
otherwise it's like a blind spot.
That's right. Yeah.
So yes, it takes a lot of inner work.
Yeah.
And those new structures
Yeah.
go through the apocalypsis. And
Yeah.
then you dissolve the old structures.
Yeah.
And then you have to build the new structures. And then you do the living amends.
That's right. So, like this last Christmas holiday, my daughter was coming home, and I didn't want to parent from the wound. And so I told myself, if you get in a situation where the two of you are going to butt heads, you need to walk out of the room. Because that's all I have the skill to do right now as I'm on this journey of understanding who I am without the wounds. And so that worked. It was like I could feel the old structures coming back in. And I was like, hey, I'm going to bed now. Or like I would just pull myself out of the environment until I could actually have some words and can be a new version of, like, show over and over and over again this new version. And maybe that was probably a new version right there.
It is.
Yeah.
You're on the path.
Yeah. But that's a really hard one. That's really the mother wound is hard. And then you watch your kids, but especially your daughters, repeat your patterns. Yeah, she's an functioner right now.
Oh my gosh, so many of us are.
Yeah.
We need 12-step for overfunctioning.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe we should create that.
Yeah, really. That'll be the next diagram we put together after we figure out, after we get the tandem befriend one down, we'll figure out the over-functioning mother-daughter relationships. We'll just help everybody.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Mindy, every conversation I have with you, it feels soul to soul.
agreed.
I just so
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank you.
this beautiful soul that I'm with right now. And
Thank you.
I'm changed by being in your presence. You have
Mm.
such deep presence.
Thank
It's part of why you have 90 million views on YouTube and have sold 1 million copies of Fast Like a Girl. And I'm just so glad that we get to hang out this weekend.
Yeah, agreed.
And be together. So let me save the last few words for you. Is there anything you want to say, final thoughts to kind of wrap up this?
Well, I mean, I have to say to you, thank you. I mean, you know what the story we did not tell is, the first hike I came to you because I was incredibly dysregulated from everything we've been talking about. And I could see something different in you. And I was like, what is Sarah doing? Sarah's doing something different. Sarah's doing something different. I got to go figure out what she's doing. And that was really, you were a shining example of somebody who was breaking a pattern. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for recognizing that.
Yeah. And I know now that I know more about the pain of what you had to go through to break it, it's even more meaningful. But I think that's what we need to do as women. That's my final word, is that we need to be willing to go on these journeys of exploration and understand our own voice and stopped adapting to everybody. It's really hard in a culture that wants us to look and act and be a certain way. But if you do it, the beauty that I'm finding is you don't need the situation to be right. You don't need the house to be standing. You don't need people to behave a certain way, because you're just in relationship with you and you're discovering you.
That's right. It's an inside job. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with the externals.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So, and I think that's my wish for every woman. There's The Crone by Clarissa Pinkola Estes is one of my new favorite books. And she has a saying in there that women create an underground system where we know how to connect with each other despite the oppression that women have had for years and years and years. And we do it in ladies' nights out. You and I did it in Mill Valley the other day. We're doing it right now. People listening to this is feeling that. And I think that's what we need to keep doing, is finding our own voice, living what's true to us, and then creating this underground system where we can connect to each other and lift each other up. And I think that is really how we dissolve the patriarch. And my version, or what I'd love to see, is a more of a matriarchal society. And that doesn't mean that women run it. It means that instead of power over, we have power from within.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah. That's the journey I'm on.
That was a mic drop moment. So I'm just going to say thank you, Dr. Mindy Pelz. Thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. Appreciate you.